Hello, Met friends! Andang here for an impromptu discussion about the executive producer's letter that came out today, April 14th, 2014. And joining me to do this, I have the LOTRO Players News team. Of course, that includes Athelros,
Hi.
Draculetta,
Hey, everybody.
Braxwolf,
Hello, everyone.
and the mystical Pine Leaf.
Hello there.
Ooh, you're mystical.
He is. I don't know why, but he's mystical. All right, and so the producer's letter starts off talking about how Update 13 launched today. There's the 7th anniversary, but no one really cares aside from the fact that the Volume 3's ending, and they're promising Gondor later in the year. So now on to the meat and potatoes of this producer's letter. In 2014, we will be seeing the Paths of the Dead and Dol
Yay!
Amroth as our second update of the year. And this will
Dol
also
Amroth.
kick off the new volume, Volume 4 presumably, of the epic story, featuring the aftermath of the Army of the Dead as they pass through Blackroot Vale. Journey to Dol Amroth, our first Gondorian city and seaside port! Exclamation point. The devs are excited. You'll also have 5 new levels to advance your character.
Ooh.
Wow. Where do you even start with that? We're going to Gondor. I mean, that's awesome. I think we all agree that's awesome. How do you feel about the fact that we're going in after the Paths of the Dead go through? After the Army of the Dead.
It's what I expected. Assuming, remember we had the discussion of which way we would go to Gondor. If it was this way, this is how I would have expected it to be. Like, following them.
Yeah, I predicted going through Paths of the Dead first. I'm surprised that we're getting Dol Amroth at the same time, though. That was really surprising. But it makes...
Big chunk of land.
That's a big chunk of land. But, I mean, it makes sense. You need to have the two together, because otherwise Paths of the Dead would be just, a very small update. So, that makes sense to me. What do you guys think about the level increase?
Okay.
I am excited about this. They're increasing
You're
it
excited.
5 levels and getting it back on the 100. Sure, later on we'll see that it goes off and ruins everything again, but my OCD can be able to sleep, and so can Roger's as well. So that is very nice.
I'm actually really surprised that they're doing this, the level increase, because it seems like there's other things they'd have to consider as they're continually trying to rebalance things. Now they're going to make our characters 5 levels more powerful again, and have to figure out how the allies work with that and everything.
Yeah.
I'm really kind of surprised. I thought that they'd leave this at the same level.
Here's
and
my
everything
thought on that. Aaron Campbell, in response to an interview, it was either right before Free to Play or right after. He was talking about the fact that LOTRO might not ever have an expansion again, because they were talking about how well the free-to-play model was working and how they didn't necessarily need an expansion. And then we saw Rise of Isengard, Riders of Rohan, Helm's Deep. And now that he's the executive producer, I'm wondering if, aside from maybe in 2015 sometime, with that battle that needs to take place, I'm wondering if we'll ever see another expansion to LOTRO again.
Well, the thing with the level cap increase is that, with this update, we're getting first stages for level 95.
Mm-hmm.
So, in 3 months, I'm guessing it's going to be 3 months when the next update comes out, all the work people put into it, which apparently isn't very much, is going to be completely invalidated.
Really, if you can take a first stager for the next 20 levels, and it'll still be better than any third ager you'll find.
Yeah,
and
but
second agers for the next 10 levels. So honestly, their work is good throughout the rest of the year, I think.
Well, the problem is, it's not going to have a very long lifetime.
No, it's not. But first stagers haven't ever really.
The stuff you can grind for this Fangorn is going to be worthless in a few months, and I'm sure how many people are going to do it. It'll be hypeballed all over again.
That's definitely true. That being said, we don't know what the release date on this is, so that's a factor as well. But I totally agree that the armor especially, I think, is a mistake, that they should have changed things. But I am glad that we're seeing a leveling cap increase for the sole reason that this means that these zones will not get overlooked by a majority of the player, a good portion of the player base. American Golden Star both stated that they don't do the non-expansion areas because their characters aren't leveling. And I think that that represents a large part of the player base. And especially on alts and things like that, that will decrease the number of traffic that goes through these zones. And I think that in order for an MMO to keep its user base interested in the zones that it's producing, you have to have that level increase there just for a portion of the player base.
Yeah, it seems unfortunate. Like, I consider it a necessary evil just for people to get into it, especially for a game like this, where the landscape and the story and the quest line is, they put so much effort into it, and people just skip it because you don't get XP. It's sad, but you can see why it is like that.
RWFRK asks how allies were released in Mirkwood. I don't know the answer to that.
What, how
Well,
they were
if
released
they
in
had
Mirkwood?
figured out a way to make allies actually grow with you, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
Indeed. Which goes back to that LI update, but I think that definitely doesn't fit into this updates talk. Alright, the producer's letter carries on. The Dead Marshes. Between updates, we'll see a small detour to check on wayward hobbits. How do you think that's going to be? Is it going to be Epic Book related? Is it going to be some side quests? Or is it going to be a combination of the two? How are we going to be going through Dead Marshes?
It says between updates. That's what interested me.
Yeah, it's really strange. It makes it sound like
seems interesting.
Yeah, it makes it sound like a very small update if it's not even going to be, considered as another number. My guess is that we'll see Epic Story, maybe a few side quests, but I think it's mostly just going to be a Epic Story detour.
I'm wondering how they're going to justify us going from Dol Amroth all the way back north and then east to the Dead Marshes.
Well, if they don't do it as part of the Epic
Yeah.
Story, they wouldn't have that problem, would they?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be part of the Epic Story because it just it looks like it's between updates, which in that case I think they're not going to do an Epic Story
All right.
outside of an update.
I have a plot line. What they're going to do is that they are going to release Volume 5 of the Epic Story and start them both going through at the same time. That's never going to happen. But that would be funny if they did that, I think. Or have an even more epic story and start that going. Anyway,
Maybe the whole thing will be session play.
it's quite
You'll take your
possible.
hints there.
Well, that's always
Honestly.
a possibility.
It's quite possible that I don't think we'll take our hints there, Brax, but it's quite possible that we could see that happening. Alright, any other thoughts on the Dead Marshes?
Well, it's going to be a marsh, and we've had a lot of marshes in LOTRO.
There will probably
So
be
I
dead
wonder how
people
they're
there.
going to make it distinctive.
The dead people, that's how.
Yeah, don't follow the lights.
Don't follow the lights. Oh, goodness. Our chat room is really active. I'm surprised. But I guess people are really liking this. We're, right now, according to my numbers, we're actually more popular than last week's news episode. So people seem to be really interested on this discussion. So
I guess I showed up for the right thing.
yeah. Speaking of that, Brax, do you have an excuse for being gone with the news?
Yeah, I didn't want to be here.
Oh, we thought you were picking up tables,
Just kidding.
but that's way
No,
worse.
I wasn't picking up tables. I was at a social engagement.
Okay,
With a table.
you could have been engaging socially with us, but whatever.
There were tables there, yes.
All right, and the producer's letter continues on with Pelagreer. Our third update of the year will take you, not us, but you, to the great port of Pelagreer on the delta of Anduin. Join the army of the dead to defeat the corsairs of Umbar. This update will also include 5 new levels. Oh my gosh. Corsairs.
Okay,
Epic battle.
there's-
Probably.
There's a thing I'd like to point out. to people who haven't seen a map of Gondor, the landscape gap between Dol Amroth and Peligir is about the size of Rohan
Oh, it's an enormous gap.
width. How are they going to fill that in?
It's an
If
enormous
they
gap.
are,
I have no idea how we're gonna get, unless we go along the coastline or follow the ships or something. I have no idea how we would be able to do that. Does anybody have any ideas?
I do not, unless this is going to be a teleport thing.
Well, let's see. Let's find a map of Gondor. And
I think
see-
that if we do a double jump over that log in Helm's Deep area, then we'll be magically teleported to this new area.
I'm sure there'll be some kind of barrel we can click on somewhere.
But I mean, what do you guys think about fighting alongside Aragorn and the army of the dead?
That sounds like an epic battle to me.
That almost has to be an epic battle, whether or not the battle's
Yeah.
epic or not.
Not to mention that we'll be having brand new enemies. Corsairs of Umbar we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
Yeah.
that's going to be exciting.
It's a brand new enemy. Hopefully they'll make it be like the Easterlings, how it was a totally different fashion of enemy.
New
So hopefully it'll be like
mechanics
that.
and-
Yep.
As long as they don't look like brigands from Bree.
Yeah. Cithra says boat battles.
And we just doubled our numbers again from the last time I mentioned it. So thank you everyone for tuning in
Yeah.
for this broadcast. That's awesome.
And
Right.
the other thing that you'd want to be, that they're likely going, is we might start to run into Haradrim a few times also in that area. Aren't we getting close to that area?
It's quite possible that we could be running into Harad there as well.
Maybe. It's a bit, far off. It's not quite there, but we could, maybe.
Well, okay. Now I've got a map up here now.
Of course you do.
So
I mean, at the very least,
Now
we could hear mention of them,
Okay.
kind of like when you hear mention of Sharky in the first volume in Eriador.
yeah. All right. There's Eric. There's Dol Amroth there.
You can see the distance
And-
now, can't you?
Oh, Pelengir is way up there.
Let me actually look for a map of Gondor.
It's
got
it's
this-
Yeah,
worth doing.
yeah.
got this
Pelengir's
picture of,
closer to Gilead than to Dol
Kindly
Amroth.
pulling out
Yeah.
these dusty scrolls, just like Gandalf in.
He's totally
Pipe in
doing
his
that.
mouth.
Now, yeah, at Pelagir, it's not near where the Haradrim would live. That's near where they would be marching in order to get to Mordor,
Yeah.
because it's near the Harad Road. Well, the
Well,
Harad
I'm
Road
not,
is
I'm
south
not
of
actually sure
Gilead.
where the Haradrim crossed. I'm not sure it says in the
Well-
books.
Well, they do have there's a road called the Harad Road, which goes through South Gondor and into southern Ithilien. And there's a road that goes all the way up through Ithilien, north-south. And that is the road where I believe Faramir ambushed them. Now, of course, I suspect that Pelagir is probably going to be divided, though, by the Anduin, so therefore we won't be crossing into Ithilien, most likely, but it could be that some of them stray to the west.
It's possible. All right. Well, as I'm looking that up, it does say that these new quests and the level caps will all be free to VIPs.
Now, Sapiens
did.
did make a either Sapiens or the producer did make a clarification that the level cap's free for everyone, of course.
Yeah, that was Rowan.
Yeah. Which
As Rowan,
is as it should be. Because that would be a big issue.
Yeah, that was a funny way to write that.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. Alright, so it's kind of hard to see on this map, but there is Dol Amroth, which is where we'll be going towards. And all the way over here is where the other places are, and then way up here is Minas Tirith. and Osgiliath. So they're either going to be majorly going through the highlights of Gondor and having these like really lengthy, long, slender-shaped zones, or they're going to somehow justify us porting around Gondor.
I mean, even just the distance between Eric and when you come out past the dead down to Dol Amroth is a pretty big size.
Yeah, that's right here where my mouse is, all the way down to here. That's literally almost the entire width of Gondor from north to south, which is just amazingly far. I mean, that's like, what, hundreds of miles, isn't it?
No, more than we could measure in game. I mean, it's like
And
the width
LOTRO
of...
is supposed to be at like 1/5 scale, so I mean, that's a ridiculously long distance.
Mhm.
So yeah, I have no idea how we're going to be able to go. And then the thing is, from Dol Amroth to Peligir, that's, according to this map, almost double the distance. And then Minas Tirith is another, like, Eric to Dol Amroth jump from Peligir to Minas Tirith.
I think they could maybe do Peligir and then just like a road up to Osgiliath, Pelennor Fields, because that's
Yeah.
going to be mainly flat farmland.
Yeah,
Not too hard
that
to-
one I'm not as worried about. It's the going from Dol Amroth to Peligir. I don't know how that's going to work. It's just
Yeah.
an amazingly long distance. Unless, well, here's the thing. What if we take the ships over to there?
I didn't think about that. That actually seems like the way they could do it, and it seems pretty likely now you mention it.
Mm-hmm.
If they take the ships from Dol Amroth to...
Peligir, it saves time,
And
doesn't
then
it?
take the
And
ships up
development.
to Minas Tirith after that.
Well, yeah, obvious. We
What
know
was
that
Gilead?
they took ships.
Right,
we
yeah.
know that they
But
at
I'm
least
saying
took
as
ships because
far
they-
as player travel.
Yeah.
So make it be like swift travel, like in Evanim.
Yeah, kind of like Evandim with the boat travel there.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like it would save a lot of development time, and it would work feasibly.
Alright, well now that we solved that problem, on to the next point in the producer's letter, which is of bears and bees, which, considering, regardless of your thoughts on the class, that's the perfect title. Recently we confirmed that LOTRO will be releasing a new class this year. I am pleased to announce that this new class is the Beorning. This will be LOTRO's first class since the Mines of Moria expansion, which included the Warden and the Runekeeper. Beornings are located in the Lord of the Rings trilogy as a race of man, with close origins to the Rohirrim and the Men of Dale. Most men are not shape changers, so we will envision the Beornings as a light armor casting class with a focus on control of the battlefield. When a Beorning gathers sufficient rage, they may transform into a mighty bear. We will be sharing early class designs with the new player council. Expect more details later this year, as the class progresses through alpha and beta.
Now that to me, I mean, outside of the shapeshifting bit, sounds very Lawmaster, light armor, caster class, control. That is all like definition of being a Lawmaster.
With a hint of champion, because there is the fact that you have to build up enough rage in order to be able to change into the bear.
That mechanic is
And so, it sounds like they're basically treating them as normal men, and like using the excuse, well, they're only in bear form when they get up to like their top thing, almost like they're calling on a greater power or something like that.
That's like their lightning storm boon.
Basically, it sounds like a special skill that, or maybe you get like a small collection of skills or something like that. It doesn't sound like something that you'll just be able to go into at any given moment, which is good, I think, if they're going to be able to do this, because while Beor could do that, I don't think that the players, if they're going to be doing this way, which is already enough lore problems anyway, but if they're going to be doing it this way, I don't think that they should allow it to be like, you know, an on-off switch kind of thing. I think there needs to be a amount of work you need to do to get to it. So what are your guys' thoughts on the class? Let's go around the table here. Let's see, Thelros, you and me have talked a little bit about this. What do you think
We
about the
have.
class?
Well, it's not at all surprising for anyone, I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the class that everyone has suggested. Whenever someone says, what do you think of a new class for LOTRO? Beyonding or
Yeah.
Ranger.
On LOTRO Players News, that's basically the only thing we could come up with was the Bjorning. So
Yes,
it's
and
not
you
that big
all
of a
yelled
surprise.
at me when I said it.
Not exactly. We just thought that it was. The thing is, at the end of that, we did it at the beginning for sure. But then by the end of that discussion, I think we kind of came around because we couldn't think of any other class.
Yeah, I think that's a problem everyone seems to be having because I haven't heard a single person come up with something other than that as an idea. Nothing. Like, I haven't heard a single one.
Yeah, and I have no idea what they'd be able to do after this if they ever want another class. There's just not anything there without them creating something, I think. Which I don't think would be allowed by the Tolkien estate unless it was more bland.
Mm-hmm.
So
But yeah, the light armor casting class bit, from what it sounds, it's kind of like they'd be a melee bruiser type in light armor, so they would use like an axe or a hammer or something like that. And then, like when they change, they would get a new set of skills that are specific for that bear form. And then, like they'd say for like 20 seconds you're in the form of a bear, and then when it runs out, you go back. That to me seems like how it would work.
it does sound like that, yeah. It sounds like basically Fervor on a champion, just a little bit different. Alright, Draculetta, what do you think about the new class?
It's not surprising this is what it is, because, like we've said, this is the only thing everybody was saying. It's the only thing that it could be. I really don't see how they're going to make it work and keep it lore compliant, but supposedly they have, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that. And I kind of envision it, if you want to use like D&D terms, I kind of envision it to be like a battle mage type class.
Okay.
If you're familiar with D&D, I would say it's more of like that's what I'm envisioning it to be just from the little hints they've dropped.
Alright, I don't know if people would like that description of the battle mage. I don't think the Tolkien estate would, but that is an
Right, well, no,
interesting idea.
Yeah, but that's just how I'm seeing it with how they're saying. But then again, I don't see how they're going to do any of this and still stay within the lore. So
Okay.
I don't know. We'll see.
So I'll save that for later. I keep thinking of these questions and want to ask them, but we need to keep going around the horn. So Brax, what do you think about the new class?
Well, it sounds kind of fun. I like the idea of having a shapeshifter and having maybe two different sets of skills on your skill bars. That sounds like an interesting twist to what we have today.
Yeah.
What I don't know is they've been kind of de-emphasizing crowd control in LOTRO for a long time, and it almost sounds like they talked about this being kind of a crowd control class in the human form. So I don't know how that's going to work, and I don't know how they're going to fit into the Trinity as far as is the bear form going to be more DPS? Is the human form going to be more healing, or is it going to be more CC? And I guess as far as when we did our predictions and we couldn't get off the idea of having a Bjornling or a shape changer because that was what everybody was talking about. I guess deep down I was kind of hoping that Turbine would come up with something just completely off the wall, something that would just surprise everybody and really get the excitement up. So I guess on some level I was a little bit disappointed that they took an idea that had been batted around the forums for 5 or 6 years and made it and took that as their own idea. But at the same time, I guess they've always said they listen to players. So the flip side of that is they are still listening to players. It did take them a while to get to this one, but at least they're listening to what we want, and they're trying to make that a reality. They're trying to shoehorn it into the lore and make sure that everything works right. So I guess I have a little trepidation about it, but at the same time, I'm sure going to roll one and try it out. It sounds like it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, I think that it is keeping people excited and interested in the game, which is definitely a good thing. We haven't added a new class since Mines of Moria. I think you'd have to be a little bit crazy to not be at least curious about the new class and see what Turbine wants to do with it. All right, Pineleaf, what are your thoughts on the new class?
Well, I guess despite the fact that, and half of me was always saying it'll never happen, the other half is thinking, well, yeah, it's probably going to be some sort of shape changer or something like that. So I guess it's not that big of a shock. Though I just thought that Turbine would never add a new class that was specific to one race.
Yeah. Yeah, that's surprising.
And that's the only real surprise on the whole thing, because if you remember from LOTRO Players, where I was making my prediction on the matter, I was saying that they would more likely call it something like a skin changer, so that they could somehow shoehorn it so that more races can get it, even though the idea of a shape-shifting dwarf, elf, or hobbit seems rather unlikely.
Imagine the beard on a shapeshifting dwarf. Immense.
He just
There'll be
shapeshifts
ghosts.
into a beard.
There'll be ghosts. What
That's
else has
actually what
three
it
beards on
happens. Oh my gosh. So here's a question: will there be female Beornings?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. So why is this allowed by the class changes? What about the Beorning made it to where now it's suddenly allowed with the changing to the skill trees? My thought on this, and then I'll let you guys answer, is that maybe they are allowed to use 2 trees, or maybe they have like 6 trees instead of 3 or something like that, and they're given a bear tree and a human tree. That's the
That
only thing
sounds
I can
rather-
think of.
I'm not sure they would separate from the other classes that much. Honestly,
I
I
agree,
don't-
but I can't think of any other thing that would be making it to where the previous class changes allowed this class to happen. That was their wording.
unless they meant like the class changes made it easier for the class to be created, like the way
That's
the trait
possible,
system
yeah.
works.
That is possible.
So I like the idea, Andang, of having maybe a human heavy tree if the human side is more crowd control and healing, and then having the bear heavy tree if the bear is more DPS and tanking. I think that actually kind of makes sense. I don't know that you'd have completely one way or the other, but because you're going to want to shift into that form no matter which tree you pick. But I could kind of see that happening. I'm not sure what the third tree would be in that case.
You transform into a dwarf goat.
I would suspect that if they're going to make the same 3 trees for this class, it'll be one for the more DPS bear form type, one that's like the healing aspect maybe, in terms of like, well, just healing herbs and more natural stuff like that, because I don't think that's the one healing type they don't have yet, I don't think.
Yeah, it's true.
And then the like third will be the control, more emphasis on that, whatever they kind of use, like roots or stuns or things like that.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see what this new class will be. I'm definitely excited to see how this goes through the Players' Council and what comes out on the other side. It'll be interesting. If the Players' Council even wants Beornings. We'll see. All
They're
right.
like, oh no!
Yep. Right, on to housing. That was very optimistic for what's contained within. Housing. This deserves a special mention. After reviewing all our goals for the year, major housing changes will not be among them. We reviewed multiple options to the update system. None of them met our standards of quality, and ultimately, the system you would want us to build. LOTRO is about the journey, and first and foremost, we want to be expanding and growing the world of Middle-earth. This does not mean that there will be no changes to housing, but don't expect broad, systematic changes. I'm sorry that we set any other expectations in the past, as we know this is a feature that many of you greatly value.
Sad,
Yep.
but not unexpected.
That was funny. The first two tweets I saw on Twitter this morning were people lamenting that there was going to be no housing change, and that was before I even knew the producer's letter was out. So this is something that's important to people.
Yeah.
And even though it's not, to me, it's not that important, but to a lot of people, it is.
Yeah, I think that the main thing that this is an issue is because, honestly, this was the housing people's new PvP map. These housing changes were led in such a way that it's almost the same effect of the first time that the PvP map was dangled for PvP players. And that's a big issue. I mean, it was over a year that they'd been delaying, and then they decided that it wasn't good enough. And so for the people that had been expecting this to happen, and the longer and longer that these things go on, the bigger you expect the changes to be. Especially when they let us on just not like a month or two ago, that the housing changes would be really good.
Right. And isn't this the second year that they talked about a major housing change?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, because
I don't blame Rowan for this.
No, I don't at all.
Because when he came in, it was like a year and a half of them already teasing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And also when Kate was in charge, and this kind of just got dropped in his lap, and he had to decide what to do with it. I think he made a tough decision to cut this, so I don't blame him for this. I think the bigger problem here is when Kate was in charge, they were constantly teasing it and then saying, oh, okay, it's not going to be a big deal. Okay, now it's going to be a big deal. Okay, we're pushing it back a bit. Okay, now it's not happening. And that people are right to feel led on about like that, because it did happen for a long time.
A long time, and that's what's upsetting. I don't know. I mean, the housing changes not coming is upsetting, but I don't think it's near as much as that issue. But if they weren't happy with it, I mean, regardless of if they released something they weren't happy with or if they discontinue it, I think either way it would disappoint players. And so they were in a lose-lose situation, and they had to make a call on it. And I think that if they weren't happy with what they were building, it's better not to have employees spending time on that and focus more on content that they know people would like.
Yeah, I agree with that ending. And in fact, anybody who's ever worked a job where there's less resources than there is work to do knows that prioritization happens on the fly. But at the same time, to me, the right time to have done this reprioritization of work for Turbine would have been immediately following the layoffs.
Yeah.
Because now they know what the resources are. They know what the work is in front of them. Before you announce to the players immediately following the layoff, and they took a week to talk to the players, remember, after that. They had time to go back and look at the roadmap. That would have been the time to come out and say, look, we've looked at the amount of work, we've looked at the number of people we have assigned to that work, and this is what we're going to have to cut. We're sorry, but at that point, the players would have understood, look, we know that you guys just went through these layoffs. They would have been a lot more understanding of stuff that had been promised before getting cut out of the roadmap. That's my only problem.
Well, we still don't know the impact of the layoffs because
Yeah.
we don't know how many people working on LOTRO were impacted, since the layoffs came out right when they were closing Asherton's call down.
Exactly. And also, we don't know, because they did announce later on of things coming in 2015, and we don't know if all those things were necessarily slated for 2015. There might be executives pushing for that to be in 2015 to go back to
This is true.
an expansion
But what
model.
was said after the layoffs was that none of the stuff that was mentioned in the producer's letter at the beginning of the year will be affected.
Yes, that was stated, and it's really, really sad that they had to cut this, for sure.
So that would have been the time to say, except for the housing or
Yeah.
whatever, had to be cut.
Yeah, but my guess is that they, at that point, still thought that they had a good system, and something happened that caused
I'm sure
it
they
to-
did.
Yeah,
I'm sure
change.
they did.
in the mess that they put themselves in now, I think the one they chose is the better option.
Yeah, I mean, either way, players would have been disappointed, but this way, players are disappointed sooner, and they're able to devote their resources elsewhere.
Yeah, I just think that with last year's, that let's say if there was not a change in management, we probably will not find this out until for another 6 months from now.
It's possible.
Yeah, our WFRK says literally from day one, Sapiens was emphasizing that it wasn't a major revamp. They
At one point, they did say that it was going to
At
be a
one
bigger
point,
deal than it was.
they did switch back to say that it was going to be a bigger deal. At the very beginning, they said it was going to be a big deal, and then they said it wasn't, and then they switched back to, okay, now it's going to be a big deal again, and that's
Make
a
up your
major
mind!
switch. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely an issue, to say the least.
I mean, from a personal perspective, were any of you actually like really looking forward to this housing revamp? Because I know for me, like me personally, as my own personal opinion, housing just isn't a big deal to me like, at all. So
If housing was a bigger deal, then I would be more upset by it. But I think that the housing system that they've had in place hasn't been that big of a deal. And I was interested in these changes just because they would make them be a bigger deal, but I'm not that disappointed that they're going away because of the fact that housing hasn't ever been that big of a deal in LOTRO anyway. And so to build a
I've
whole new
never-
system, I don't know.
I've never played a game or not played a game because of the housing system.
Star Wars Galaxies was probably the closest thing to making a housing system really impact the game, I think. And maybe a couple other games, but as far as games I've played.
I mean, like I've seen like other MMOs having this really huge and big and detailed housing system. Like Rift has one. I think like WildStar is meant to have a pretty good one too. I mean, even those, I'm not interested in. I just like have no desire to use it at all. So it's not like the quality of LOTRO's housing has made me not want to do it. It's just the concept of housing just isn't something that appeals to me.
Yeah. PK Crichton from the chat says that Rowan says that we won't have any major housing updates. I'm curious what the small things they could do still. They could
I'm
still
guessing
do.
it's tweaks like the housing chests or the costs and stuff like that they did with this update. Actually, like a couple of stuff like that. Nothing that people would actually want.
Nothing major that people would actually want. There might be little quality of life things here and there, but yeah, I agree.
Right.
Alright, and then they continue on saying, as always, there are also features that we're working on but haven't committed a timeline to. Basically, we'll ship them when they're ready. Many of these ideas are based on your feedback, so please keep it coming. So that's PR speak.
Yeah.
Alright, the next item is kinships. The next addition to loot options is a system of crafting tied to your kinship house, which will encourage more social play. Our goal is to create kinship deeds that you can complete together. Finally, yes, it's only crafting related, it sounds like, but finally they have deeds for kinships where you actually will be working together. That's been a request from pretty much the beginning, I think, and definitely since a lot of other MMOs have been implementing these types of things. LOTRO's kinship system is it's a good system in my opinion, but it's not up to snuff with some of the newer MMOs.
Yeah, this is something I could imagine, like the housing resources they could have been using being redirected towards, because this is something I think that's more wide-ranging and more affecting than housing. Because kinships, I would say like most players are in a kinship, but a fair-sized chunk I suspect are. And having like this ability to socialize, because again, community in LOTRO is a very big deal, more so than most MMOs, I think.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't understand about this is what did he mean by when he said the next addition to the loot options? I didn't understand that phrasing.
My guess is he means like a source of gear, like so you get loot, you get crafting, you get reputation, you get like stuff from boss. So
Yeah,
this
it's
could be
another
addition.
Yeah, it's another type of loot option is how I read it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't read it that way. I was just confused, but that way makes sense though.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, and they continue on with combat rebalancing. You said that high-level combat has gotten too easy, and we agree. With new regions, we'll be taking a hard look at balance and adjusting existing opponents or adding new ones?
Adding new ones?
I think
Well,
that
things like
that's
Corsairs
where the Corsairs and
and-
stuff comes in, yeah.
Well, I'm hoping they mean like mechanic-wise, not just they look different or they have different animations.
All elephants will work a little
because-
different.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Unless they just use the mammoth model.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm hoping they find time to like actually change mob skills and make those more dynamic, because right now a majority of the mobs, like Danger, is just in it using its auto attack on you over and over and over again. Aside from maybe like a couple of stuns that some have, but their damage over times or their some of their debuffs are just incredibly weak. You just ignore them and keep fighting. You should actually have to worry about maybe cleansing them with your part or with your skill. That kind of stuff I'm hoping they will do.
Yeah, the problem is when they do that, sometimes it gets used so often that I know at one point you were so often getting debuffs put on you, it was just too annoying. So that's one of the reasons why people started ignoring them, is because they were just so done every single battle 20 times that you couldn't afford that many pots.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like I know the Angmarim in Illuminus and other places putting that Fate and Will debuff on you, how it used to like completely remove your regens. That was very irritating because they would just cast it over and over and over again. That kind of stuff is taking it too far. But to say they made it where instead of casting it every few seconds, they cast it like every 30 or 20, or maybe like they have an induction that you can interrupt, and the actual effect, if they do land it, will be more significant. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Maybe. It'll be interesting. Alright, PvMP. Why add catapults to the Etmors? Why not? Siege weapons.
Whoa.
Okay then. I'll be honest, siege weapons might be something to get me to try the Etmors again, because that actually changes the way that the game is played, as opposed to just bounce and stuff like that. So
People have been complaining about this particular one, and I'm hoping the reason is because there are more problems in the Moors already, like balance wise and bugs and stuff. I'm hoping that's the reason, and because if not, then it's just like, well, these could be fun. Fun is meant to be a deal in a game, so have more fun.
yeah.
Of course, I'm hoping that before they put these in, that they actually fix all the current, or at least most of the current issues in the Moors before they do it.
I doubt that'll happen though.
No, I doubt it too. But at least the major ones I'm hoping for,
Yeah, we'll
especially
see.
balance.
Alright. And Drac, do you have the producer's letter open?
I do.
Alright, if you want to read the next one after PvMP.
Sure, great, yeah. Hold on one second, and I know which one this is, but hang on, my Firefox.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I could guess what it's going to be about.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got that Firefox add-in that filters this.
Yeah, see,
It
exactly.
filters
That's
out
right,
the
you know,
epic
that
battle
my,
talk completely, yeah.
Yeah. Epic
Oh,
batter
gosh.
filter kicked in. Hold on. Let me my page crashed out.
Have to turn off that.
Okay. Epic Battles will continue to update and improve this system. God knows it needs it. Along with the new battle in 2014, there are some epic conflicts ahead in the story. Yay, more epic battles. I'm so excited I can hardly wait.
So,
I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice.
I'm
yes.
sure.
let's say that the improvements to the system don't actually improve it. Do we want to see more epic battles going through these other areas, or would we rather see them try to do what they did with the camp in Dunland or something like that, where it's instanced? Let's go around the horn here. Drac, we already know is probably no, that he doesn't want
I was
any
going to
more
say,
epic
do I have
battles.
to answer?
So Pineleaf, what do you think?
Well, you said no improvements over the system?
Assuming that there are no epic battle improvements or very minor ones, what would you want?
Well, let's just say that if they're not mandatory, I'm not going to be doing them.
Okay. That's pretty straightforward. Alright, Brax, what do you think?
Well, I think I've decided what I would like for them to do with epic battles,
Mhm.
and that is I still think they need epic battles to be able to tell their story, like they've said before, but I think they should only make them required one time as a part of whatever storyline you're following and not have them be the end game. I like going through the epic battle once as a part of the story and then being able to leave it behind and then maybe doing skirmishes or something else as an end game. That would be my preference for the way they do this going forward.
Okay. And Theros.
I would mostly agree with Brax on, like, I think they do need this as a system because some of the stuff coming up ahead you just can't do it with additional instance because it's too small a scale. You can't do it with skirmishes because again it's too small scale. Doing it like that Wolf's Cleft instance could maybe work at a pinch, but it's still not quite enough. I don't think.
Well,
I would.
let's say the next epic battle is the assaulting of the boats with the undead. Do you think that warrants an epic battle, or do you
That
think it
one-
could be done with
That
a Wolf's
one, I
Cleft
think.
Oh,
undead?
please, no.
That one you could avoid. I think
Oh,
because it's not a
Take
straight.
yeah, skirmish it maybe.
Now, see, I could get behind a skirmish of that.
Just
You
not.
skirmish it, baby.
I would do
Maybe.
that skirmish every day if that was a skirmish.
Skirmish it, baby.
I don't think something like that would necessarily be an epic battle. Maybe one for say Osgiliath or obviously Minas Tirith Pendle Fields.
Yeah, but those are 2015. They said a new epic battle 2014.
I'm guessing something to do with the Corsairs at some other place. Maybe something happens near Dol Amroth. Because I know they are meant to be raiding the coast of Gondor,
Yeah.
and it's not just that Palantir.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing Brax was saying about that, like, I wouldn't mind it, like, doing it once and then moving on, not having it be the end game. I would partially agree with that, but I wouldn't mind it being a end game, like an option for you to do. I think the problem with epic battles with Helm's Deep is that it was the only thing at the end game to do. This is the same problem that was with Hypebold. People
Yeah.
would probably have been a lot more receptive to it if it had been something among other stuff you could do. Release, say, the Erebor stuff and Hypebold at the same time, people would have had more options and they probably would have been happier as a result.
Yeah.
So
I
say
agree.
we get to later raid areas, give them traditional instances, I guess, because people seem to like them. Maybe a skirmish or two, and then have an epic battle for where it's appropriate. More options is good.
Corell in the chat room says if they actually improve epic battles, what do you think would be the thing to focus on improving?
The pace. Pacing
Yeah.
is my main issue.
Pace
Mine
and
is
feeling
pacing
importance.
and exactly that's what I was about to say. I really want to feel like I'm doing something in the epic battle.
Well, the thing with
Right.
that is it's part of the intention that you're not meant to be more important than everyone else. You're just a soldier doing your bit.
Right, but
It would
let's
be nice
say
if you could aggro 1 out of every 10 orcs or something, you know.
The thing I would change with the aggro is they would put you on the level of those other soldiers. So if you do damage to them first, they target you. But otherwise, like, say, the commanders will always go for the commander, whether you hit them or anyone else does. Because at
Yeah.
the moment, you're, like, below the other soldiers for some reason.
Yeah, that's
yeah,
a bit of
and
a
that's
pain.
why
Yeah,
it's such a big issue is because the enemies don't notice you. You're basically a ghost in the battle, which brings us back to the epic battle that will probably be coming. So maybe it'll be more fitting when there's other undead amongst us. I don't know, but all right. Well, anyway, on to festivals. Hobnobnigans, better known as Chicken Hockey, is a special event for the Bree Fields. You can expect weekend boosts and events as we go forward to distract you from the epic battle. No. All right.
Okay.
Not really anything special there. It then goes on to 2015, but first I would like to say that 2014 sounds amazing already. We're getting 2 really, really big updates, it sounds like, plus a small update to follow the Frodo and Sam's journey.
Getting Dol Amroth.
Keep it together, Atheros. Yeah, I
Be
mean,
seeing the sea for the first time in 7 years.
we will. Unless you count
right,
Forochel.
it's supposed
Well, it's not really the sea there, is it? It's more like the bay.
Yeah, it really is. So,
I mean, like the open sea.
I'm excited.
to- Let me see what. what Dol Amroth is in.
It's by the sea. It says in the producer's letter. All right.
Well, I'm just trying to. Well, it's very definitely a larger body of water than we've been dealing with before.
Well, here's a question. Will lakes and stuff create lag already in LOTRO? Will an entire sea/ocean thing create a ton of lag for the game?
I think they'll handle it.
So in other words, when you face the direction of the elves always face, well, you have a lot more lag than when you're facing north or south, for example.
I don't know. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
All right. Looks like Dol Amroth is on the Bay of Belfalis.
Okay.
So it's not.
I knew that already from the map I saw, but okay.
Yeah, but so it's not like it's the Great Sea.
Well, it opens up into the Great Sea.
It opens. You'll definitely have a vista of the sea, regardless of.
It's not
happens,
frozen over. That's for sure.
Exactly. All right. Any other comments on 2014?
Nope. Other than the fact that it does, as you said, it looks good.
All right. 2015. Looking out to the future. Our Palantir reveals multiple updates in 2015. Here are 2 of them. Now notice how it says updates. Just like to point that out for a second. I might be reading into it too much, but it does say updates.
Could I also just quickly say that it's pretty gutsy of them to have a 2015 anything at all at this point? Because, again, that's like next year. And it's not often that they actually go this far in saying what they're going to do.
That's true, but they did say Western Rohan when they were talking about Eastern Rohan, and we all knew what that was going to entail.
They did not bump the housing into 2015, the housing updates.
No, they pretty much
said
it's not happening.
They said it's going to be canceled, yeah. Which is good if they really aren't going to do it. I don't want them to just push it on another year,
Just thought I'd point that out.
Yeah, I think they chose the better of 2 evils. But it's still a really sad thing.
As we already said.
Alright, so anyway, we might not see an expansion in 2015 based on that wording, and I kind of think that might be the case, at least not what used to be an expansion.
It says multiple updates, so yeah, you're right.
And then the things that it says here are 2 of them, and then it mentions Pelennor Fields, Minas Tirith, and Osgiliath. I mean that sounds like that we're not going to have an expansion unless they have like an Mordor expansion or something like that, which I couldn't even contemplate that happening. So we might not see an expansion in 2015 as well. Let's just assume for a moment that it is how it states and there isn't an expansion in 2015. Is that a mistake?
For me, it's too soon to say.
Too soon to say? Alright, Brax, what do you think?
Well, it's not a mistake as long as they're making money and they can continue to make the game, I think. And I guess it's hard to say. We haven't seen a minor update until today, so
that's true.
To judge what 2015 is going to look like, we're going to have to, I think, look at how 2014 pans out first.
Yeah. Jack and Pineleaf, what do you guys think?
All right, well, we look at the ones they say that Osgiliath and Pelennor Fields, Minas Tirith, we are talking about the stuff combined together is an expansion's worth. Let's face it. Minas Tirith, Pelennor Fields, we were, of course, originally assuming that it was going to be part of a big Gondor expansion. Instead, they decide that they want to do it piecemeal so that we can be able to progress on it. And I'm sure there's going to be a level increase during one of these times. They're doing 2 level increases without an expansion this year.
Right,
They're certainly going to do one with Pelennor Fields.
Can you imagine what it's going to be like having Osgiliath? Will be there. You'll be able to see Minas Tirith, but you won't actually be able to go there. You'll be right there.
You will be like Peregrine Took looking out towards Mordor and thinking about the fate of Frodo.
Except we'll be like, oh god, why won't they let us in there?
Yep. We could see the shadow of Edoras with Eastern Rohan, but we also were able to, spoiler alert, travel there. So
Yeah, so that doesn't quite count.
so
The question I have actually is that, looking at the timeline, I mean, we're following Aragorn and all that stuff. Will we be going to Minas Tirith before the Mordor's armies come? I mean, I'm assuming so since we'll be in Osgiliath. Or will we be actually turning up with Aragorn's army?
or both somehow.
Which brings it again to the question of which side are we fighting the Battle of Pennell Fields on? Gondorians or Rohirrim or
Well,
Aragorn's
That's
company?
a really good question. Now that we're aligned with Aragorn going through the lands, I don't know. It's difficult to say, but at the same time, you look at how they did Rohan, and it wasn't at all from the point of Aragorn. But that being said, the way that we're traveling around Gondor, it almost seems like we'd have to be following Aragorn. Unless they put a pause button and we rush ahead to Minas Tirith and, learn all we can about the people and feel sorry for their losses and all their problems, and then have Aragorn come in and save the place.
Welcome the Prince of Dol Amroth when he arrived.
Well, here's the thing. If we arrive with Aragorn, we can't do the previous part of the battle. It'd have to be that time when it's super heroic.
And that'll be the downside of if we do turn up afterwards, then we're never going to see Minas Tirith just like not on fire.
Yeah.
Or not have its gates smashed in.
I don't think they'd want to do it that way. But at the same time, we are kind of traveling with Aragorn, it sounds like, from what they said in 2014. I mean, they didn't explicitly state that, but I don't know how else you'd be getting around the map like that. So
I have no idea. How can we get... Because Aragorn, I think, got up... Actually, I think Aragorn got up as fast as one possibly could. But he was traveling upstream, though, so...
yeah, that's true.
Of
course you know that, Pineleaf. You know it.
The early part. What?
Nothing. Just continue.
Right. So he would, and the winds only started being in his favor at a later point because because the wind started turning around the start of the Battle of Pelennor Field. So it's possible then that he was slowed by that, and we might be able to get there faster. Maybe. But that means...
All right, Aragorn, I'd love to help save your city and help you become king and everything, but you know what? I had another dream, and I need to go all the way back to Galadriel, and then she's going to take us into the...
She sent you to Elrond.
No, she sends you to Elrond, and Elrond says, let me show you a vision of Frodo and Sam in the dead marshes, and then... After that, you get sent all the way back over to this other area, and then make it to Minas Tirith that way.
I'm glad I got a worse steed.
Where do you think Volume 4 starts?
Glad
be with Elrond.
With the mailbox.
With the mailbox, the VIP mailbox, that's right. Alright, I do want to go ahead and read off what they say about Osgiliath and the other places. The middle of 2015. That's already kind of risky. They're laying down the parts of the year. Which leads me to believe, since they've said, years ago they were working on Minas Tirith and Pelennor and Osgiliath, leads me to believe that they've got this in a state where they think that they might be able to do this similar to how they had Western Rohan. Hopefully a little bit more polished. But anyway, the middle of 2015 brings us deeper in Gondor and to lands directly contested by Sauron's armies. It's good to see Sauron and not Saruman anymore as the main villain, I must say. Pelennor Fields and Minas Tirith. The end of 2015 takes us to one of the defining moments. Takes us to one of the defining moments of the War of the Ring, the battle before the walls of Minas Tirith. As you can tell, we're in the heart of the story now. It's a tremendous challenge for the team to do justice to these well-known events, but also one we're thrilled to be undertaking. Tremendous challenge, which it is. Can you imagine all the technical work that has to go in just to making Minas Tirith appear before the player? And all the people that are inside Minas Tirith that are NPCs going about their day, let alone the fact of having to have a battle there. I don't know if they're going to be ready by 2015, especially after what I saw with Epic Battles in 2013.
Well, the point there that they don't tell you about anything in the early 2015 is maybe a hint that they're gonna take that time, for not developing anything there to work on this stuff.
That is true, but it does say multiple updates. Here are 2 of them. That being said, they might not have landscape and significant content updates.
Maybe doing chicken hockey.
Yep. What do you guys think? Do you think that we will? Do you think that Turbine will be ready for Pelennor Fields, regardless of how they portray it, in 2015? Atharos.
Sorry, I was.
Do you think that Turbine will be ready for Pelennor Fields in 2015?
I think the landscape visual design part, they will be ready for it because they always are, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mechanic aspect, the combat, the whatever instance they come up with type. That is where the problems are probably going to be lying.
Yeah, and it does say one of the defining moments of the War in the Ring, the battle, and so that means that there will be a battle at the end of the 2015, assuming everything goes to plan. Brax, do you think that they'll be ready?
People will die.
Well, I'm tempted to say that they're already in trouble because on their 2-year roadmap, they're 2 weeks behind on releasing this update. But I think they're going to get it done. I think you're going to see kind of a Helm's Deep-ish rush to get this in before Christmas 2015. And if they need to, they're probably going to augment their staff to do so. And because we've seen this before, we talked about the pattern before, how video game companies will ramp up and then they'll lay off. And I think to make this date, they will definitely do everything in their power to do that. Yeah, I think they'll make it.
All right, Pineleaf.
I think I'll agree that they will do everything they can do to make it, and we know that they don't always succeed in doing it, but if it's possible for it to be done, they will get it done. I just hope that there are as few bugs as possible in it when they ship it.
Yeah, to say the least. Drac, what do you think?
Drac is no more.
Oh my gosh, Brax. What did you
I
do
didn't
over
do
there?
Ah, that holy water.
He's just gone.
Wow, Pineleaf, what did you do? All right, well, Brax is recovering from his injuries. I do think that they will get it done, but I think that it might be a repeat of Helm's Deep, where we might not be happy with at least one of the mechanics, which it'll be interesting to see. I am a little bit more hopeful, though, in the fact that they have done epic battles. We'll see what this new epic battle in 2014 is like. It might redeem epic battles and might make it. They might find something that allows them to make them much better. They will have 2 years from 2 years, a year and a half, to prepare for that. So that's time. They said that way before the first Riders of Rohan came out, they did say that they were already having their landscape designers be building up Minas Tirith. They've been working on Minas Tirith for a very long time. Hopefully, they're already working on the epic battles that'll be there. I don't know if it'll be ready in time, though. I hope that it will. The problem is that even if they do make the smaller epic battle, presumably at the in 2014, this one is on a whole nother scale, and they're gonna have to do a lot more tricks and possibly cut out a lot more gameplay that we'd be able to do in order to do it that way. So, makes me kind of worried.
And the trick is getting some sort of grand battle, because Helm's Deep was, let's face it, an infantry battle, despite being in Rohan. The Pelennor Fields is very much a cavalry battle.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that it's during the daylight, so they can't necessarily use all their nighttime epic battle tricks.
Oh yes, because they make it very clear that the cloud cover that had been making the whole place gloomy for a long time was breaking apart just as this battle was starting.
Yeah.
After seeing what they managed to do with the Entmoot, I think they could definitely manage that in terms of like.
I haven't
messing
got
with
that
the
far,
sky and
so
all that.
that'll be interesting.
Well,
my issue
yeah.
isn't with messing with the sky and things like that. My issue is with the actual physical NPCs during daytime because of how pixelated they are, according to one of the articles we had on LOTRO Players. Will they be able to use that same trick during the daytime?
Something that I've always kind of felt, and that most people probably disagree with me on, is that I could very easily live with this, Minas Tirith epic battle thing. I could live with it not being very good. What I could not live with is if the landscape is not good, or if the story isn't good. That is mainly why I play the game. The battle part is like, okay, I could enjoy it, but it's not why I play the game. So even if they are like slightly off the mark, like you could say they were with Helm's Deep, I'm happy enough just to enjoy it as it was and then move on.
Okay. I already gave my thoughts on it, I guess. Is Drac back yet? Nope, he's still dead, it sounds like. Alright. Well, are there any more thoughts on 2015, 2014, the producer's letter as a whole?
Not really. Aside from the fact that by not saying anything about it, we can pretty much take it as confirmation that they're not going to make any more traditional instance content or skirmishes, at least for 2014.
I agree
which
for
is gonna
2014,
upset some
yeah.
people.
I think they've said that, yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do in 2015 with that sort of stuff, particularly the updates that they're not mentioning. There might be some instances there, but don't want to promise anything that's not there. That's just hopefulness of ending. Yeah, so, alright, well, we've been going over an hour already. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to include this in at the end of the 43rd episode to LOTRO Players News. And so we'll have that at the end of that. And that way it makes it into the podcast feed, so we don't have to spend another hour talking about that on episode 43. So I am going to go ahead and read the last part of this producer's letter here, which says, I hope that you've enjoyed this sneak peek into the future plans. I'm not reading that. Hope you enjoyed this sneak peek into LOTRO's future plans, and I also look forward to your questions and suggestions. And he already has been replying on several things, which we'll go over, I'm sure, on episode 43. So, anyway, thank you everyone who joined with us. We had a great turnout today in the chat, and hopefully we will be able to talk more about this through questions and things like that on the actual episode. So anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you for episode 43 of LOTRO Players News, where we will be talking about all the rest of the news and the responses from the devs to this crazy producer's letter. And also, we'll be giving our first impressions to update 13, because it all came out on one day and we're really tired. So anyway, thank you guys once again for watching, and we'll see you again on Saturday.